here after Colorado's 10th spring practice. There's a soccer practice going on over here, so hopefully we don't get hit during this analysis video, Brian. But a good day of interviews around here. More numbers have been ushered to players, and one that surprised us after we taped earlier this week, and Isaac Hurtado, and another surprising number that's been earned here this spring.
Yeah, Louis Passarello, tight end that has not gotten any playing time during his career here, and we were at some point even last year thought, I wonder if he'll still be around, if he'll stick with it. He's been at the bottom of the depth chart since he's been here, but he's got his number. I think it's 38 he's wearing, and then Jordan Domineck got his number as well. So more defensive guys, but on offense, it's like I think it's Jimmy Horn, Travis Hunter, and Louis Passarello at this point. So a couple of surprising numbers, but hey, maybe these coaches are using some of this as motivation and say, hey, let's get going, guys, get your number.
I don't know with him specifically. We'll find out when we talk to Coach Brewster. But guys can sometimes develop at different stages and different paces, and I don't know. Maybe he will be a player here, or maybe that is motivation to get other tight ends to playing better football out there in the practice fields, because we heard that was part of the reason that Coach Hart wanted to give the number to Isaac Hurtado. Yep. First off, he said that Hurtado came out during the scrimmage and was flying around playing at a different speed than he had in practice, but also mentioned, hey, putting him with the twos now has lit a fire under other guys. And he mentioned Marvin Ham as a guy that he actually expects to get quite a bit out of going forward, but he wants to motivate him. And he said that he holds Marvin Ham to a different standard. So that's yet another returning guy that's caught the attention of this coaching staff.
Yeah, and with Hurtado, Coach Hart said he started off saying, hey, to be honest with you, he was at the bottom of my list to start off, but got that number. And he said with Ham, because he wants the single-digit number, which won't happen, so he's got to get that out of his mindset. But that group obviously is very interesting because you got LaVonta Bentley coming in from Clemson, who was very productive as a reserve there. Then you got a bunch of guys that are returning players here that didn't play a ton. Marvin Ham, probably the most experienced guy coming back. So it's an interesting group. Coach Hart said it's coming together, but he wants guys like Marvin Ham to step it up a little bit more. And who was the other linebacker he mentioned that was kind of standing out to him? Oh, Aubrey Smith. Is another one, inside linebacker stand out to him. So we're starting to see some of these returning guys emerge a little bit.
And a lot of these guys that we've been talking about to start this video, these might end up being depth pieces. These are spring ball storylines sometimes, when a Louis Passarello steps up and earns that number, but doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a starter. One guy we talked to today, LaVonta Bentley, you do expect to be a starter. And you look at him physically, that's what a starting middle linebacker at the Power 5 level is supposed to look like.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of Josh Chandler-Samito from last year, who was very productive at West Virginia, came in here, had a very good year for CU last year. Bentley sort of looks like that. Looks even, I think he even looks part even more than Josh Chandler-Samito, but he was very productive in his time at Clemson, but he was at Clemson. They have a ton of great linebackers. He was never a starter. I expect some big things out of him. Another one, Demoy Kennedy comes from Alabama. Not able to go right now, but Coach Hart said once he's going, there's not going to be a faster linebacker on the field.
Coach Hart has great personality. I think we're going to be excited every time we get a chance to talk to him. O'Boyle earlier this week, really insightful and truly try to answer the question you were asking. We appreciate that. And then Kevin Hart, or Andre Hart, he brings the comedy like a KevinArt does.
He's not as short as Kevin Hart, I don't think. But my favorite thing from Coach Hart today was I said, hey, there's a lot more defensive guys that have gotten their numbers. Does that mean the defense has been ahead of the offense? And he goes, nah, it just means the defensive coaches are lazy and don't want to worry about numbers anymore. So I kind of like that. But, there has been a lot of those guys on defense. I think there's only 9 guys that have numbers, but I think 6 or 7 of them are defense. So it is interesting that we're seeing more on that defensive side. But you're right, personality-wise, Coach Hart, I'm not sure you can get, obviously Coach Prime, Deion's got, out of this world personality, but outside of that, it's probably Coach Hart, and every time, I think it's a couple times now we've been able to talk to him and that personality shows up. Everybody sees it in the videos as well. He's got a lot of personality.
I remember when Coach Prime was announced here, and I'm sure you did a lot of national radio interviews, and you got a lot of different takes. And one of the takes I got was, well, he's not going to be in Boulder very long. And we don't know the answer to that question, but when you look at Coach Hart and him going on YouTube and having a show called The Whistle with Neely and Coach Pollock. These guys seem to like they're really embracing Colorado in trying to take it all in, really. They're not just here for the football side. They're embracing the community as well.
Well, it seems like, even with like pro athletes over the years, it seems like a lot of them wind up staying here and living here after their careers. I think a lot of people come to Colorado and realize, wow, this is a pretty cool place, and they stay here. And I don't know because we haven't asked that specific question, but it seems when you look at Coach Prime and you look at these videos that maybe they're surprised at how much they enjoy Colorado as a place to live and to be here. So, who knows? I mean, maybe that does play a role in it and keeps him and the staff here for a long time.
And, we've heard these new coaches talk about the weather. Well, it's really not that bad. This was probably the worst winter from a day-to-day temperature standpoint and just the snow not melting probably in, 15 years, probably going back to like the Dan Hawkins era here at CU.
Yeah, so if they can handle this and it's not that big of a deal, then they're golden.
One other guy we talked to today was Jordan Domineck. He earned his number as well. High expectations on him coming in. He made plays in the ACC at Georgia Tech. He made plays in the SEC at Arkansas, and is a guy that they're really going to rely on because that's one area that with quarterback and getting after the quarterback, those were the two areas that 2022 Colorado team struggled the most in. So they still maybe probably need to bring in another guy there on the edge, but for now, Jordan Domineck is a guy that's proven it.
Yeah, I think they were last in the country in sacks last year. And so you had, Jordan Domineck, Taylor Upshaw, it's Taylor, right? Yeah. and Jeremiah Brown. I mean, those are three guys that were highly productive at their previous schools. I mean, I remember it was Upshaw and Domineck committed, I think, on the same day. And I'm almost positive on this stat that those two guys combined had more sacks last year than Colorado as a team. So, the production you're bringing in, and then Jeremiah Brown was very productive as well. So I'm excited just to see at least those three guys. And then you have some guys that have been here that have shown some potential, like a Devin Grant, so there could be some depth here. You might want to add another one or two, like you're saying, but I think with those three at least, those three newcomers, and then Devin Grant, I think it's a pretty good group.
Well, there's no question it's going to get better because of those guys because it couldn't get worse than it was last year. I was trying to rack my head. You might have to go back to Jimmy Gilbert, the last time this program had somebody as talented off the edge at getting after the opposing quarterback. Carson Wells made some nice plays, but it wasn't necessarily that week-to-week consistency of getting tackles in the opposing backfield. So I think Domineck might be the most talented at that position since 2016.
Yeah, and Carson Wells actually, I think it was 2020, led the country in tackles for loss, but and he had a lot of them in 2021, but not a lot of sacks. He would get a lot of those plays on running backs on the edge, things like that, but not a ton of sacks. And you're right, Jimmy Gilbert was the last guy you point to and say that was a highly productive guy as far as getting to the quarterback and making the sacks. And so they need someone that's going to have more than 4 or 5 sacks in an entire season. They need somebody that's closer to 10.
All right, 10 practices into the Coach Prime era. We'll be back on Saturday.